The Media Monster is based off of my research where I began to find a trend between the negative aspects of sport and the media, and based off of this trend I created the hypothesis that the media is to blame for the corruption of athletes in sport in Spain. So what is corrupt about sports? There are several problems that have risen out of sport over the last several years, but the biggest issue involved cheating through performance-enhancing drugs, the athletes being poor role models for kids, and a loss of the true nature for why we play sports to begin with. Modern-day sport has a cheating problem where the athletes are taking performance-enhancing drugs to further develop their abilities. The reason why these athletes are cheating is because of the pressure that the media places on them. While having a brief discussion with Spanish national athlete Lara Dominic, we discussed the amount of pressure that is on an athlete during the games while representing your home country. Lara stated, when playing for the national team, you feel a lot of pressure. When you hear the Spanish hymn, you could feel your nerves. This pressure that is placed on an athlete can either make or break them, and with the media making sure that all eyes are on them, even more pressure is put on the athlete to succeed. This pressure, in turn, gives an athlete two different options for how to improve their game to avoid the pressure. They can either work hard by going to the gym every day and practicing to perfect their craft, or they could take the easy way out. In Spain, one of its biggest athletes who had to make this decision was Alberto Contador.
Snap to get away from. Oh, here comes Contador with a big move.
Alberto Contador lighting the afterburners. This is the move we've been waiting for. Oh, Evans killing himself, but to no avail. Contador looking smooth. He can sit down now and try to ride away from his main challengers here. Alberto Contador, one of the best climbers in the world, and showing it here.
When Contador started winning some minor races, many people in the media considered him the next great cyclist to replace Lance Armstrong as the best in the world. The amount of pressure that was placed on Contador to succeed and replace this legend in the sport was astronomically high. Contador had success winning the Tour de France 3 times, but in 2010, the year after he won the last time, in what may have been his best performance yet, Contador tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug. Contador was then stripped of his title and brought shame to the Spanish community. Despite the scandals, Contador has remained Spain's most popular cyclist, and during events such as the Tour de France and the Vuelta de España, commentators and reporters focus a majority of their attention on Contador. Since the media is only talking about Contador, impressionable viewers such as children would start to idolize him. The media does a poor job in creating positive role models for youth.
15 años, charlan como lo que son amigos, pero igualmente también rivales. La relación está ahí. El clásico la ha debilitado. Lo de Marcelo es imperdonable. A vista, lo de Marcelo no tiene perdón.
Es que Fernando, si había un jugador por el...
Tiene que hacer Pinto fuera del banco. Se explica uno, o se pregunta uno. Mirá, y después llega Mourinho a tocarle el rostro a Tito.
For an impressionable child to see that kind of fight occur, they can get to thinking to themselves that it's acceptable to fight or to act out when they don't get what they want. The people on the pitch that day were people who have fans from all around the world watching. What was worse than the fight itself was the fact that the fight was shown on replay many times after the game was called. It was printed on covers of newspapers and discussed by multiple media outlets. If this is all that kids see, then they get the idea that it is okay to fight in football. The media created an exposure into sport that had previously been unknown. So while adults are telling their youth to emulate one of those athletes, they don't know that there is so much more that they don't know about them. In a way, then, the media is the reason why sport has lost its innocence. Because sport has lost some of its innocence, there are now other reasons to get involved with sport other than playing a sport for the pure love of the game. This is because the media has molded sport into more of a business industry. Granted, this industry has turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry, but even still, of all the opportunities that sport provides, the nature of the sport is lost. Some of these opportunities are good, such as giving themselves and their family a chance at a better life. With these opportunities, families have begun to cash in. In the football world, parents are able to send their children to La Masia, the FC Barcelona school. At the school, the kids get an intense education while also being bred for competition for when they get older. In this 60 Minutes interview, Piqué is asked about the school.
Star defender Gerard Piqué started here when he was 8.
Masia has been called a football factory. Is that unkind? I don't know. I think factory, I don't really like this name, no, because finally we are humans, we are people.
Sure, but the objective of Masia is to create good football players.
Yeah, definitely, that's for sure. And everyone knows that.
The parents send their kids to the school so the kids can be groomed to play professionally so that one day they can make a lot of money. From the club's perspective, they are able to do this because of the money that is given to them by the media. The reason why these clubs do it is because of the pressure that is on them to succeed. Since it is cheaper for a club to produce a star rather than buying one, clubs are forced to groom talent. Once the talent is groomed and ready, they will become money-making machines that are able to operate exactly the way the club wants them to. After finishing with this part of the research, I began to wonder more about the roles that the media plays in the average Spaniard's life and assess whether or not role models are actually sport figures. So I asked myself 3 questions. How many Spaniards watch the news? How much time is spent on the news talking about sport? And how many kids' role models are sport figures? The first question was important because in order to confirm my hypothesis, I needed to know if Spaniards even pay attention to the media. The television station that pays a lot of attention to FC Barcelona is TV3. According to the graph, during the months of June, July, and August, there is a deflation in the total number of viewers who tune into TV3. These months are also the off-season for FC Barcelona, so having higher viewership while football is in season supports the idea that Spaniards care a great deal about the media and about football. It is also important to note that during the season, more programs are offered that are centered around the team. For an example, on Mondays, there is a comedic program that is on after the news that makes light of events that occur within the team. The second question paid attention to newscast itself. For 30 days, I watched the news and counted the minutes of each newscast. On average, 17% of the news is about sports. About 95% of that 17% of the time, they are talking about FC Barcelona. On game days, there is a spike in the amount of time that the newscasters talk about sports. This study showed that the media, even during their time to discuss the events that are occurring in the world, find the time to talk about sport. This means that sport is valued greatly by the media outlets. The final question dealt with who are kids as role models. This study surprised me greatly. I asked 12 different kids who live in my apartment building who their role models were. Going into these questionings, I thought that a majority of the kids would say their parents because in Spain, family is very important. Even still, the most popular answer that I received were athletes, in particular Messi and Xavi. Based off of these results, it becomes clearer that athletes play a major role in youth's lives. This makes it disappointing then when you see events on television or in newspapers when an athlete acts out or cheats, because this means that children who want to become like them see it as acceptable behavior. In Spain, sport has a major role in a person's life. The media has helped in bringing in more attention to the sport. However, some of the aspects of sport aren't good and it can lead to a negative impact within society. Because of the negative aspects of sport and an increase of interest by the media, more kids are looking up to these athletes. And because of the amount of pressure that is put on these athletes, they make decisions that aren't good for the game itself. The media is responsible for highlighting the corruption of these athletes and therefore the reason why they should be blamed for the corruption of the sport. Thank you to everyone for watching this video.